we are here with the co-founder and someone that just wrote a super good book that everyone should read. We have the honor of having on the one, the only Alex Nethercott with us today. Alex, sorry, I think I said Alex. So thanks for
Alec,
coming
yeah,
on the show.
yep. Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome. Good to be here.
yeah, of course. I'm sure that can't be the first time someone's called you Alex instead of
No,
Alec, right?
my whole life. So that's what my go-to is no Alec with a C, like Alec Baldwin.
Got it. I like it. Yep,
Terrible
I always
actor.
joke. Yeah. I always joke. I'm Taylor, but I always joke that my grandma calls me Tyler because I have a cousin named Tyler. So she gets us mixed up every time. So I've been like Tyler my whole life to my grandma.
Oh, how
but,
funny. I
but
know
I'll
you.
take
You
that
know
too.
Tyler McAllister at Fusion. I don't know if you know him. I called
Oh
him
yeah,
Taylor for like a year. I feel so bad. And anyways, so yeah, you're totally good.
yeah. I know, and it's funny. You guys kind of look alike. It's like your doppelganger down there. Is that
Yes,
Tyler McAllister?
we get that all the time from with each other that
Yeah.
we look like. He's a stud. So I'm not complaining about that one.
Yeah. No, not a bad person to be mistaken for sure.
Yep.
Well, cool, man. So yeah, I'm excited to dig in. You recently came out with your book called Core for Leadership, and like I told you before we started recording, I'm on my second run through now. Just super good, and what I love about it is I think it's extremely applicable to solar cells because obviously you've been in the industry. You've been in door to door a lot of years, so all the lessons you've learned, you've taken it and condensed it into this book. And I'd say it's probably my favorite leadership book that I've read because again, it's all like applicable directly to what we're doing.
Oh, that means
So
a lot.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. So yeah, we'll dig into that and everything. But before that, I guess do you want to give us just Reader's Digest how you got into like door to door and co-founding V3 and I guess the short version of how you did all that.
Yeah, no problem. So let's see. I um I got back from a church mission. I served in Norway. Got back in 2008 and needed some money for a wedding ring. I wanted to marry my high school sweetheart, and but obviously didn't have any money. So I had some friends that were doing well selling alarms, and so I did that. We did that for 4 years. Recruited my friends. We went out to Chicago and Washington D.C. and those are some good years. Dark
Nice.
dark summers, but good.
Yeah.
Wonderful years.
Nice.
Um, and then then I graduated in finance, and the goal was always to get out of door to door. I was always trying to get out, and I always thought I would do real estate. So I did that for about 3 years, and that was at a time when the real estate market was just at an all time low. And I raised a small fund. We bought 171 units across Northern California of apartment units, and
Mhm.
that was a huge just learning experience for me, and made a lot of investors happy. And when the market started to heat back up, this was in early 2014, is when we started looking into residential solar. And I had studied solar in my bachelor's degree because I actually, my degree was real estate finance, and so
Mhm.
we looked at sustainable housing and how to develop communities that were sustainable and that kind of stuff. So solar was a big component, and that was the first time that I had really done the research into PG&E. And
Mhm.
you're down in SDG&E, but it's a similar story. It's PG&E, for those who don't know, is California's largest utility company, and um, back then rates, I thought rates were high back when I was in school. And if you look at prices today, I just wouldn't have believed you if you told me what the prices were today, in comparison to where they were 10 years ago when we
Yeah.
started V3.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we saw a really big need there in just deploying that solar. And we saw it not even so much as our opportunity, but a duty to do it. It's, hey, we know how to do this. We know how to scale sales teams. We know how to go door to door and sell this product. Let's really scale this. And so that was back in early 2014, and
Mhm.
then been doing that ever since. And that's kind of my background, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
wrote the book. The book, I've been writing the book the last, I mean, it's taken probably 4 or 5 years to like finally
Wow.
get to the finish line.
Wow.
And, but yeah, it's been really fun to see. The coolest part for me has been, when you launch the book, you don't know who's gonna if anyone's gonna buy it or anyone's gonna like it. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, I'll at least sell 2 copies. My wife and my mom are gonna buy
Yeah.
this.
Nice.
But um, anyway, so that's been really fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, we'll get into the book, but I'm curious. You said you were sounds like you were looking for ways to like knock doors and everything. And I don't know if you were still knocking doors when you started V3 or running like the sales side or anything, but for you, were you just I don't know, were you just sick of being on the doors? Or I know a lot of guys are like, oh, I don't want to knock doors forever, but what were your reasons for like trying to get off the doors and everything?
No, for me, it was more about the product. We were doing alarms, and it was just always just for me at least. I wanted to play bigger. I wanted to just a product I believed in a little bit more. No offense to
Gotcha.
anybody selling alarms. I think it's a great product, and I'm grateful for the time selling it. But for me, I was just interested in real estate more than alarms at the time. But
Yeah.
that was, you know, one thing I really like about what guys like you and Sam Taggart and others are doing is bringing honor to door sales. Because if I'm being candid, part of my reason for wanting to get off the doors or out of door to door was because of the stigma around it. I wanted to
Mhm.
have a big boy job, and my parents, and there was just a lot of kind of social pressure to have a real job, I guess. But now,
Yeah.
especially with solar, I mean, I have friends that are dentists and doctors that aren't making the kind of income that some of these guys doing solar are doing, and so it's a
Yeah.
really respectable profession. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that was how it was for me.
Yeah. Okay. So when you started V3, were you you weren't really like on doors or running cells or anything at that point, were you? You were kind of
Oh
just
no, in the beginning, well, technically when we started, my role was chief was COO.
okay.
But I was on doors. We were trying to figure it out, and I don't know, it's probably sold 20 projects in that first year just with the sales team trying to figure out how to get things off the ground and figure out the sales
Okay.
process because we didn't know any we had never sold it. We didn't know what we were doing. There wasn't It was still the Wild West. Like there was really I guess Vivint Solar was around and Sunrun was around, but their sales process was totally different. And
Yeah.
so yeah. But no, we definitely have knocked a lot of doors in my day and have a lot of gratitude for what door to door has done for my life. No question.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, obviously you guys have been successful because as I know you've seen, I mean, we're out here in California where NEM3 just, like took a ton of companies out of business and it's been a tough year for solar. And I think still a ton of potential here, a lot of systems to be sold. But where do you, before we get into some of the leadership stuff, where do you see that some of these companies went wrong, or why do you think there's so many companies that have gone out of business, specifically here in California? And what did you guys do to, um, get weather that storm of NEM3?
Man, it's hard to say what's going on at other companies. I think that's why business is the great sport.
Yeah,
It's you just try to play your best. You know what other companies are saying they're doing and what's going on, but you don't ever really know what's happening. A lot of companies will not a lot of I mean all companies, even when times are dire, they pretend like things are great because you have to.
right,
You have to
right,
put on a happy face, and your recruiting pitch has to be, no one wants to go to a sinking ship, so you got to, put on
right.
a good front. But I think what a lot of companies struggle with has been, um, I think sales and marketing costs, I think, is a big one.
Mhm.
I think that the installers are not making nearly the margins that anybody thinks that they do. I think that the assumption is that there's a lot of meat on the bone. And
Mhm.
myself, I know you're probably, your network is probably, you have a lot of salespeople in your network, and but just with my background, I guess I have a unique perspective because I also have I've sold and I have an intimate knowledge of how the sales process works and an
Yeah.
appreciation for sales, but I also have intimate knowledge of just the business side and knowing that, I mean, a lot of these solar companies are just barely scraping by. And
Mm.
then to add insult to injury, you have cash flow problems with all these finance companies that are late on their payments. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, make no mistake, solar it is a tough business.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is just a shout out to all the installers. Make sure and thank your installers and your, those who are running the, the business side. Make sure and express gratitude, because it's a tough business, and it's proven to be the refiner's fire as far
Yeah.
as, very few solar companies that were around even 5 years ago are still around today. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I would say sales and marketing costs. I would say cash flow is a big one. That's where
Mm.
a lot of them went wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been tough. And all these reps that complain about having too high of red lines and all that, or the reps that have the low red lines, then all their companies went out of business. It's
Yeah.
like I think a lot, especially on the sales side, I think guys are realizing it more now that you don't need the lowest red line. But back a year or two ago, guys were like, "Oh, if you're not getting this low of a red line, then you're getting screwed over." And then
Yep.
all those same guys now, a lot of them aren't getting paid out, or the company's gone under that they were with that gave them the lowest red line and everything.
Yep. Preach.
So
I know.
yeah,
Yep.
so
I
yeah,
know. And,
but
and you try to tell them, you know,
yeah,
uh, yeah, yeah. Would you rather make more per kilowatt, or would you rather make more on your 1099? Because you're
yeah,
not going to get paid. And anyways, but yeah, that's it. It's I think it was necessary. I think that kind of had to happen just to show, just, the market always reaches equilibrium.
right,
So if something feels too good to be true, or if things seem out of whack, it probably is.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, enough of the negative stuff. I want to get to what the main reason we're here, and that's to talk about your book that just came out. So I'm excited to dig into a couple of it, and definitely go check it out. If you haven't, it's on. I've been listening to on Audible, but you can get it. Where's the best place to get it? Amazon. Is that where most people
Amazon.
pick it up? Okay.
Yep.
Yep. So everyone should go grab a copy right now if you haven't already. But before we get into it, so what's the main reason you wrote the book? Because obviously you've been in sales, you have a knowledge of a lot of different things when it comes to business. So for you, why was it leadership that you decided to write a book about? What made you want to write a book about leadership versus a lot of other things that you could have probably written about as well?
Yeah. I think, um, a main reason I wrote the book, I actually originally started writing it was for our own sales team. And it was,
Mm.
you only, as a manager or, business leader, you only have so much time that you can spend with each individual. But one thing that was particularly helpful was audiobooks. If I could prescribe audiobooks for, say, if someone listening is a manager of a team of, a small team, and they're not able to grow like they want to. They want to scale, but you can only grow as fast as you can train leaders that can carry weight and carry responsibility, and so that you can just handle more and continue to grow. Anyway, so you can prescribe those books, and there was nothing that helped somebody change in positive ways faster, including myself. Like, listening to audiobooks, I mean, has completely changed my life. Whenever some college kid or somebody asks me, does an interview or something, says like, you know, what are your biggest tips for being successful? That's the first thing I say is, honestly, stop listening to music in the car and start listening to audiobooks. Like, it will change your life. Listen to
Mm.
like the best sellers in business and self-help, and I promise you, you will be a different person in,
Yeah.
in 5 years. Anyway, so initially, the challenge with that was there was not a tailored book for like what I was looking for, which was specifically, how do I get somebody who has a ton of potential in being a sales leader to really go from here to here? Like, they want it, they want to do it. They just, there's a lot of philosophies about leadership out there. You talk
Mm.
to 20 different mentors, you're going to get 20 different philosophies on leadership. And,
Yeah.
um, so really I put everything into a book, that I had experienced. And the big thing is, just I heard someone once say that the person you're most suited to help is your former self. And so really
Mm,
that's who this book is for. Is like my former self. Is like somebody who's struggling to understand like, okay, what are the philosophies that are going to make the biggest impact and move the needle to help me be a better leader and to help my team step up and be better leaders and, provide that value. So that's really why I wrote it. It's just because I mean, I think everybody, and I say this now, like, that everybody struggles with that insecurity or like a desire to have more confidence and to be a more confident leader and public speaker and manager and all those things.
mhm.
And I was insecure the entire time. I'll totally admit that. Like, and you probably will be too. And any tools that you have, like one of the best things I did was invest in help and just things that I could do that would help me learn how to think. Because that's really what you want to learn is you want to learn how these business leaders think. And so that's really why I wrote the book, was to give you more confidence. And
Yeah,
anybody listening, if they, are on a similar path, that they could just have some resources that could help them right away.
yeah, yeah, so good. Yeah, and that was actually one of the nuggets that I got from your book on the first listen through. Is I think there's a section where you talk about, if reps would come to you with, I don't know, problems and whatever, you would give them some advice, but then you would recommend like a book for them to deep dive on the topic. Just because obviously there's only so much you can tell them in that moment, but it's like, hey, I'm struggling with closing the deal or whatever the problem is. You point them to like a book to go deep dive on
Yeah,
the topic, and I'm like, man,
100%.
that's super smart because yeah, that's like they're gonna learn way more if they themselves go and search out the book and um, do a deep dive on the topic than you just trying to talk them through something in 5 minutes. So
Than
I'm
you
like, man,
lecturing
that's
them or something, yeah, you're totally
yeah,
right. And you're limited in time. You may have a full hour you can give them, or maybe you're a
yeah,
super manager and you like spend, like, hey, come over tonight and we'll go from 10 to midnight and we'll just jam on this idea. You may
yeah,
have, but your time is limited. Or they can spend 10 hours in the car listening to, John Wooden or Brian Tracy or, one of the legends. And then the
yeah,
benefit is that they listen to it and it's their idea. So they're coming to you with this thing that they heard. And you're like, yes, it,
yeah,
it wasn't you lecturing the same point over and over. They found it out for themselves. And that's
yeah,
that's, a lot more powerful.
yeah, yeah. I love that. So would you say that's a pretty common trait? Like all, I mean, the phrase is like leaders are readers. Would you say that's pretty true that pretty much every good leader you've saw or built up, they're super into books and reading? Would you say that's
100%.
important?
Yeah,
Okay.
without exception. I can't think of an exception.
Wow.
And outside of door-to-door sales and other industries too, like it is a common theme. Like they are reading books.
Yeah.
They're not wasting time with Netflix and, dumb entertainment, just mindless things. Like they're being intentional with leveling up.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, one of the best. I mean, sometimes I'm off and on with it, but I think the best thing I did to start reading more is just 75 Hard. Sure, you heard of it, but just where they have you read 10 pages. The whole Andy Frisella workout
Yep.
thing.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Um, read 10 pages. So yeah, I think that's a really good because 10 pages. I mean, usually doesn't take more than like 10 minutes, and then when you combine that with audiobooks too, you can get through a lot of books. But how, for you personally, how many books are you typically reading a year, and what do you see from like good leaders? Because I know I've heard like the stat that the CEOs of like Fortune 500 companies read like a book a week or something. To me was like crazy. I'm like, wow, that's I don't know if I have time for that much reading. But are you is it like that level, or how many books would you recommend or like see that good leaders are reading on average?
I mean, in my experience, even the guys that are saying that they're reading a book a week, like they're probably doing like a summary. There's those summaries
Yeah.
app. There's a couple that I use. One is called Blinkist. The other called Get Abstract.
Okay.
They basically, take the good books and give you a summary that you can listen to in 15 minutes. I would say when I was younger, I would try to listen to like one book every 2 weeks. Like I did a
Okay.
couple years where I tried to do 25 books a year, and but I actually didn't like that. At the end of the year, I was like, I didn't. I like it better when I can take my time with a book. the goal is not to get through as many as you can. That's dumb to me. The goal is to learn and to like let it sink in and marinate in it. So like I'll take a book and like sometimes I'll listen to a couple of chapters and I'll kind of get bored of it and move on to
Yeah.
something else. And then there's other books that I'll listen to 30 times, no exaggeration.
Wow.
Um, My secret, like my book is Lead the Field with by Earl Nightingale. Like I've read that book probably 30
Mm,
to 40 times, no exaggeration. Like when I was on
wow.
doors and I was in my head and I was sad and like couldn't go on, I would like, as a 21-year-old kid, 22-year-old kid, I would put on Brian Tracy or sorry, Earl Nightingale Lead the Field, and it would pull
Mm,
me out of it and just pull me into like just positive mindset, because we're really like think about it, like there's so many sources of information that we're getting, and most of it, 90% of it, maybe more, is negative or not helpful, whether it's the news or the rap song you're listening to that's talking about drinking in the club and freak dance, I don't know, whatever. Or like some Netflix movie that's just about dumb stuff. So
yeah.
we've got to be really intentional with our inputs, with the things that we're allowing in, because it's going to directly impact our mood and the way that we show up in all of our roles.
Yeah.
Like, and we don't even realize it. Sometimes we'll watch a movie that will put us in a weird mood for a week. I've
Yeah.
noticed that with me. It's like we've got to be really deliberate with our inputs. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my rant about audiobooks. I love audiobooks.
Yeah. Well, and what I love too is I think most people listening probably have like Spotify or whatever. And I think there's not really excuses to not listen to audiobooks because anyone that subscribes like Spotify, there's like thousands of books on there. And I look up most like self improvement, sales books. A lot of times they're already included in Spotify.
I think
I'm like,
Seven
man, people,
Habits is free on there.
yeah, yeah,
I've listened to Seven Habits. That's another one. That's an annual read for me. I've probably read that
okay,
one a dozen times. He's one of my
wow,
heroes, Stephen Covey.
yeah. Yeah, great book. So yeah, it's like people don't really have excuses to not listen to books these days because it used to be that you had to buy the we're kind of old, me and you. We came from the day when you had to listen to like books on CD and
Oh
when
yeah,
I was a kid, I think it was books on tape even.
I still have a bunch of them.
But
Yep, not
yeah.
the tapes, but the CDs.
Yeah.
My dad's
But
got the tapes.
yeah. Yeah, I think it was CDs. I don't think I'm that old, but yeah, so it's like people got no excuses these days. So easy to go on Audible. Yeah, just and do you read your books or do you listen to them or do you do both or what do you like
I
doing?
listen almost exclusively. I listen.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I think I do get more. I'm more of a visual learner, so I find I do actually get a little bit more if I like read, or even better if I can listen and read at the same time. But
I
what's
do
cool
that with
about
a few
lists?
books, like
Okay,
Ray Dalio's his book Principles.
yeah.
I've listened to that one, while I read it physically. I've done that with Seven Habits. So I agree with
Mm.
you. That's a great way to learn. Like if you can do both and you can be
Yeah.
highlighting while you're listening and reading, I get a lot
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, with like listening, that's the cool thing is even less of an excuse because yeah, we're all driving a lot in cells. Most of us are at the gym and all that, so it's like why not use that time where you're already doing something to kill two birds with one stone. So
Yep, 100%,
no excuses.
100%. Well, and
Love it.
that's really a big reason I wrote the book too. Is like you said, there's there this book really. One piece of feedback that I've had often is just that it's perfectly tailored to what you're doing. Like if you're in a sales role, it's like there's few books that will have more actionable items. Like and you're trying to scale a team. Like if you're in that phase of your career, there's
Mm,
fewer books that have as many tangible like takeaways right away. That's tailored. Like you might read a book from some CEO of a tech firm, or you might read a book about a basketball coach, or but and they'll be great books and you should read those. But there's not a ton of books out there that are written for exactly what you're doing in your career at this time. Does that make
yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of stuff we talk about with books. Didn't mean to turn that into half the podcast, but
No,
um,
all good.
yeah. So I wanted to get into in the book you talk about just like this doing this self evaluation thing. So that's another thing I got. I would say one of the bigger takeaways is your core four principles. Or the leadership. Gonna have to look at my notes again, but it's vision, skill, action, and character, right? Are the
Yep.
four
Yep.
core
Good
four?
job.
Okay, okay, yep. Wrote it down because I knew I'd forget. um, so one of the first of all, I guess how did you? And I think you did talk about this in the book, so people can read it too. But how did you narrow it down to those core four? Because like you're talking about before, guys can go read a lot of leadership books, and there's going to be like principles in all of them. I'm sure there's a lot of like important leadership principles, but how did you narrow it down to these four things in specific of vision, skill, action, and character?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of nerdy. My degree is in finance, and so I view the world in formulas. They just really help me simplify a complicated world, I guess. So especially early in my career, I was really a student of this. I'm still a student of this in many ways, just of like a good leader. Like, what does it look like? How do they think? How do they get the results that they're getting? But especially as a young aspiring leader, trying to scale a sales team, I was just constantly looking for that formula. Like, okay, just tell me what I've got to do, and I'll do exactly what you tell me. Like, what is this formula? What does that look like? But I never could find one. I as a sales rep, I found it really helpful to have. I don't know if you guys do this or a lot of people listening, but brand new sales reps, it's always helpful to give them a formula. You say, hey, listen, if you will knock the doors and if you will say the pitch the right way, you will see success. Like I've been doing this for years. If you just do those two things, you'll see success. And they try to overcomplicate it and tell you it's this and that. And there's all these, all these other problems. And you're like, no, 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 it's just these two things and you'll be successful. For me, that was really helpful just to always come back to that simple formula. Okay, control the controllables. I'm going to do these two things and I'll get results. And it always worked. But as a leader, if you're trying to scale a team, it can be discouraging. If you're, there's might be people listening who have, scaled up to 10 reps and then lost half of them, or scaled up to 100 reps maybe, and then they lost, all of them because the company went under. Now they're starting from scratch. And it's like, man, what do I got to do here? How do, like, what did I do wrong? And so anyway, the formula really came from studying this idea and trying to find out what made leaders great. Like, um, there's a lot. I mean, hopefully you've had good managers, but I've had a lot of bad managers in all my jobs, in my high school jobs, and throughout my life. There's a lot of people will become a manager at some point, maybe be a management role, but very few actually get good at it. And so
Yeah,
anytime I hear somebody raving about their manager, like in a good way, like, wow, like, oh, just wait till you meet this person. Like they are just awesome. Like they're just incredible. Like Dave Allred, I always heard people talk about Dave Allred has become a friend and close friend now. I invest with him and he's a, what early in my career, I would hear about him and the numbers that they were putting up and the size of his team and just what a stud he was.
yeah,
Um, there's a lot of names out there. Ashton, you work with Ashton, Buswell, Kyle Nielsen over at Aptiv. Just these people. I would, before I met them personally, I would hear from their people about them, and they would just like they couldn't stop, talking about how great this person was. So whenever I would hear that, I would get really curious because it's a rare thing. It's like, wait, you love your manager? Like, what do you mean? Like, well, what are they like, and how do they do this? And then getting to meet these individuals and I've had the fortunate experience of being able to share dinner tables and just get to know a lot of these guys at not just within door-to-door sales but also in insurance sales and real estate sales and tech sales. And I mean, like the people who are at the top of these organizations are like, they are the real deal. They are just total like class acts, awesome people. And the thing that they have is it's a combination of four things that makes them so special and so unique. And so, you can read more about, I guess, how I came up with each four in the book. But, those four things are vision, skill, character, and action. And, um, a leader may rise to a management role because they're good at one or two of those things, but they'll always have like a ceiling above them. They'll never be able to really break out until they have all four of those things.
Mm,
And so the fastest way that you can become a better leader is to figure out which of those four areas you're most deficient in, and then start working on those things.
mm,
But the challenge is that most people tend to study the things they're interested in, not the things that they need to work on.
yeah,
Because either because they just don't want to face it, they don't want to confront it, or because they're completely oblivious. Like there's such a thing as blind spots. So some people have
right.
no idea.
Mm,
So at our company, and for many years, we've done this survey and basically surveyed all the sales reps and all the sales leaders on these four attributes. And it's been a breakthrough. Like it's been extremely helpful in helping
mm,
people go from, base level sales rep to now we have guys that are managing, you know, 200-man teams that were, they all started as a sales rep. Um,
yeah,
so does that answer your
yeah.
question? That's a long answer to your question. Sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, and I was actually gonna bring up the survey thing because that was another like big takeaway I got from the book is that sometimes we don't see these blind spots, and just like any, it's helpful to get the feedback and know because you have a lot of stories in the book where guys were like really good in a few areas, but they had no idea that that's what was holding them back, and just seeing like the results of the survey. So yeah, I like that idea a lot too. Um,
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say there is just the analytics, just to be intentional about personal development and leadership
yeah,
development instead of just, hey, let's get a cabin and go to Park City and let's all read Extreme Ownership and
yeah,
let's talk about it. Like you're going to have a good time and you're going to have good comments and everyone's going to feel good. But then 2 weeks later, when everyone's back in the field, literally you're getting the same results and you won't know why. You're like, oh,
yeah,
well, we had this great leadership retreat and we did, it's like, well, yeah, because you didn't like that was good. That's better than nothing. But you need to actually be intentional about it because every single person there has something different that they need to be working on in order to be
yeah,
better. They have everybody there has something different holding them back from,
right,
kind of getting to their next level. So, looking at it from a numbers base, again, going back to formulas and surveys and actual data, you just can't argue with the data. It's
right,
not just anecdotal, you saying, hey, you need to do this. It's, hey, look at the data here. All of your reps say that, you need to work on this area. And then it's like,
yeah,
okay, like, hey, this isn't a mean thing. I'm not being mean to you. This is like, we're in the war room. We're in the locker room before this football game. And, your sprints aren't fast enough. You need to train sprints because you're holding the team back. And they say,
yeah,
okay, like, that's what I got to do.
yeah.
Cause it's our
I love that.
job, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what would you say to? Because I think in my head it seems maybe a little bit easier to improve on like action and skill, right? Because it's like you can tell them, okay, go work on the, let's improve this part of your presentation, whatever. Let's hit these metrics. But to me, it seems like vision and character. So those are things that seems like it's a little bit harder to like measure and maybe like less tangible, less like metric based. So, what are some things specifically with like vision and character? How would you say that you've seen guys improve in those areas versus just like sales? Like, how do you? Is it like books you point them to, kind of like we were talking about earlier? Or how do you get guys to
Yes.
like have a bigger vision and better character?
Great question. And that's interesting that you say that those two would be easier because for everybody, it really is different. Like
Mm,
for some people, they look at that and they're like, oh, those two are easy. Like I can
yeah,
see what I need to do. And they have this big vision, or they're really strong in character. They're really, that's not something that they're even thinking about, but they're just really lazy. And they're like, but
yeah,
action, like, I don't know how you do it, Taylor. Like, how do you get yourself up every morning and get out there and get after it? Like, I just don't feel like doing it. Anyway, so
yeah,
that's
right,
another reason why the book is helpful because you can go back to those four chapters and depending on what you're working on or what you want one of your reps to work on, they can reread those chapters and get something
yeah,
new out every time. But But
Yeah.
I would say in general, this is a generalization, but based on no data, just my, you know, personal interactions with people, that vision and character are the most rare. I think that
Mhm.
the most common that you'll find are a lot of people that are, skill and character or skill and action. I guess going back to that formula from earlier, right? You've got the, if you'll say the pitch the right way, and
Mhm.
if you'll knock enough doors, you'll be successful. That's kind of like
Yeah.
action and skill, right?
Right.
So, someone can be successful with those two things as a sales rep, but they're going to recruit friends and those friends are going to leave. And they're going to recruit other people. And, if they're not developed in vision and character, they're just going to struggle in building a team and,
Mm.
doing anything other than just being kind of a solo producer.
Right.
So, so you asked about vision and character.
Yeah.
Um, I'll start with vision. So vision, vision is really important. I think it's important because if you want to build a team, if you want to get good at this, if you want to be, a business leader and a sales leader, it's important to understand that the future is created by people no smarter than you or I. Or
Uh,
said another way, like the present that we live in right now was created was created by people no smarter than you and I, but just people that had a vision. Like the room I'm standing in, the room you're standing in, like somebody, built the blueprint for that. And that was their idea. Or the office building that you go to every day, or the, the garden that you drive through, on your way to out to area or whatever, like somebody had an idea for that.
yeah.
That's really like, the future resides in your imagination. And it's
Mm.
the people that dream and scheme and imagine, like those are the people who are creating the future. Like that's so I think understanding that is really important, but
Yeah.
also, just dreaming more, dreaming bigger. I think that's important. I think most sales reps can't see past like the commissions or, like the next year. They struggle to see, okay, well, how can we 10x this? Like, how does this look? Hey, I'm managing a team of 10 sales reps right now. What does 100 reps look like? Like, well,
Yeah.
okay, well, like what software do I need to have? What kind of culture does it look like? If we're gonna have 100 reps, then I'm going to need some of these 10 to step up and I'm not going to be able to manage 100 by myself. We're going to need help here. So,
Yeah.
how do we get these people to step up and them to be leaders? It forces you to just think in a more creative way, a different way of like, okay, how do we solve these problems differently?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely prescribing books. In
Yeah.
my book Core 4, at the end of every chapter there's recommended books. So
That's
um,
right.
like there's some really good ones at the end of Vision, just books that I just love. The
Yeah.
Magic of Thinking Big. Uh, um, uh, uh, I don't have it right in front of me. Help me out. What were some of the
Yeah.
other
Uh,
recommended books? I'm
yeah. I remember that one, but yeah, I
um,
guess people have to read the book.
yeah,
I
you got it. Yeah,
guess people
exactly.
don't
So,
know.
yeah, I'm not going to spoil. I won't spoil it for you.
Yeah. Okay.
No, which one? What else am I thinking of? I'm thinking of there's whatever. I guess you can
Yeah.
cut
And a
that
Power of Now, maybe. I don't know.
cut that part out. No, 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 no.
No. Okay.
Whatever. I should. Yeah. Anyway, some
Okay.
really good books about vision. I really sold
Yeah.
that well. But
Yeah.
but yeah, prescribing books just to kind of help people, think bigger. Um,
Yeah.
Elon Musk is one of the books I prescribe just because that
Oh
guy
yeah.
thinks so big.
Yeah.
You hear about the games that he's playing and the problems that he's trying to solve. It just makes you think. It can't help but inspire you and think, wow,
Yeah.
like I'm thinking about paying my bills this year, and he's thinking about going to Mars.
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck? Like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? I need to stop playing small. So, I think that's really important with vision. There's it's just important to dream. It's important for us to create because
Yeah.
it also it makes it more fun to show up to work every day, but it also
Yeah.
makes it more inspiring and attractive for good people that want to come help you, and they want to come help you build.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go. I learned this the hard way. nobody wants to work for something small. Like everybody wants to work for something that's going to blow up, that's going to get big. Like they want to be a part of something that's has a bright future where people are really pushing hard and are dreaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially
And I
good
think
people.
exactly. Yeah. And I think if people paint that picture, have the vision, it can overcome, I would say, a lot of maybe deficiencies in business or even like lesser pay or whatever. Because I will say the first company I was with that I started with in solar, they were really good at painting the vision and they had this big plan to eventually sell the company that we were going to be part of and all this stuff. And we were getting paid less and there were other problems, but we all just kind of overlooked it because we were so bought into the vision of, of like what
Yep.
could happen with that company.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, I
And
do
again,
agree
that's why
that.
you need all four, right? Like
Yeah.
you also need the character. You need,
Right.
you know, because a good way to know, sales gets a bad rap because there's a lot of bad players out there,
Right.
and you hear stories about that, con men and people that are, they sell you on this big vision and then nobody gets paid. And that's really unfortunate because there's also a lot
Right.
of really good players out there and there's
Yeah.
people that are doing it right. And, it's important to be, aware of those companies. And one way to identify them is the best way to know what people are going to do in the future is look at what they've done in the past. And so it's
Yeah.
one thing to have a great vision. It's another to actually deliver on that. Like the
Mm.
people that I work with, they know that the reality that we live in today at V3, those were all things that we were talking about 5 years ago, and we delivered on that.
Mm.
And or 10 years ago, and you know, I think that that's really important because that also builds trust and it reinforces it that year after year, they want to work for leaders that are thinking big and then they actually have the ability to deliver on that vision.
Yeah.
So it's not just about talking about it. Sales reps are actually really good at that, making it sound like it's going to be this great thing, but actually have
Yeah.
no ability to fulfill. Right.
Yeah.
So it's important to deliver on it. So that's probably a good segue into character, which is,
Yeah.
you know, character is really important because that's how trust is built. So
Mm.
character is number 3 on the list of the 4 multipliers. Character is very underrated. I think in business in general, but especially sales, you see a lot of sales teams that are, I don't know, I don't want to offend anybody here, I guess, but they're on the yachts and the bikini babes and they're ringing the gongs and they're smoke,
Yeah.
they're snorting cocaine or whatever the movies show, all that stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
honestly, that stuff has always just really like repelled me from like, especially, when I was, years ago when I was trying to get out of door to door, that was something
Mm.
that I would think of. It's like, I don't want to be associated with that. But the cool thing is that the more great leaders that I got to know, it was that they didn't want anything to do with that either. Like that's not what they were about. They're
Yeah.
not, they're once again, like the great leaders are like they're class acts. They're the real deal. They're not into that.
Yeah.
They're not wasting time and money. Like they're investing. They've got great families. They're spending, they're thinking about the right things. They're actually somebody that you'd want to be like. So when we think about character, that's what I mean is like, do your reps actually admire you? Like, do they want to, would they trade places with you? Or
Yeah.
is your personal life a mess? Like you've got a drinking problem or you've got, you're always going through, every month you've got a new girlfriend and you've got, I don't know. Once again, like I'm not trying to put anybody down or like everyone has their own journey and I believe in second chances and all that stuff. But,
Yeah.
you're going to attract the type of people that you are. And so that's one of my favorite quotes. I actually have it up on the wall over here,
Mm.
which is by Jim Rohn. Or no. I'm thinking of the one by James Allen. This is in the
Okay.
book As a Man Thinketh, and
Mhm.
and and the quote is, "Men do not attract that which they are, or men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are."
Mm.
In other words, in
Yeah.
life, we don't get what we want; we get what we attract, and we don't attract what we want; we attract what we are. What we are, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So I remember sitting across from this sales rep who she was a female, real nice gal, and Um, but her life was a total mess, and she would
Mhm.
kind of open up about that. And she was crying. We were doing a one-on-one, and I was checking in on her, trying to help her. And she had asked for some advice, and she had just
Mhm.
broken up with this really bad guy. And hopefully this doesn't sound judgmental. I'm not going to keep her, or I'll keep her name,
Yeah.
confidential. But she,
Yeah.
at the end of the conversation, she just said, why can't I find any good guys? Like, why can't I find I just want to find a good man. And again, this is going to sound super mean. I'm just saying, but I didn't say this out loud, but I had the thought. I was like, you've got a face tattoo. Actually, she didn't have anyway. She, again, maybe I'll backpedal here. This was just the first thing that I thought of, but
Yeah.
she was, um, it, I'll say it a different way. If you are not attractive, you're not going to attract someone that is attractive. Or if you are a piece of garbage, you're not going, you're going to attract other pieces of garbage. You're not going to
Yeah.
attract the type of person that you're going to want to take home to see mom and dad, or somebody that you're going
Yeah.
to want to live with and have kids with and build a life with. Does that
Yeah.
make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I'm
but
sure she was a nice girl, but
yeah, exactly. A sweet spirit, as we say.
yeah.
She was nice, but she,
Yeah.
but anyway, but I think we're all like that in some ways. I'm sure I'm like that in some ways, where it's like you've in order to attract the success you want, there's probably a personal change that you need to make.
Yeah.
And finding what that change is and confronting it is the first step. Like, that's really important. Ray
Yeah.
Dalio, in his book Principles, he says, everybody has one thing that's holding them back, at least one thing holding them back from their success. Find yours and deal with it. I think
Mhm.
that's really important, because that's hard to do. It's hard to confront, it's hard to confront our weaknesses and those things that are holding us back. That,
Yeah.
that that's why character, we're talking about the four multipliers. Character often is the hardest one, because it really forces us to look at our life and our character and the things that other people are going to are going to judge us on, candidly. And when you're
Yeah.
in a sales leadership position, you want to believe that there's a separation between your personal life and business. Guess what? There's not. Like, they're watching closely. And
Yeah.
if they see you as somebody that they can learn from, and that that you have a type of life that you could show them how they could also get, they will follow you, and they will
Yeah.
watch you, and they will be loyal, and they will hang around you. But as soon as they see you just making bad decisions and being frivolous, either with your money, or you're not, you're showing up late to your meetings, or you say you call and you don't call, or you've got a drinking habit and you're unreliable, or whatever it is, like, guess what? They're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go follow somebody that can help them get what they want. So
Yeah.
developing character is extremely important. And I'll define character also in a few ways. Um it's being dependable. It's
Mhm.
it's being a firm foundation that they can build on, not something that's finicky, that's, they're trying to build their career on it, but you just keep, pulling the rug out from under them. They can't rely on you.
Yeah.
You've got to do what you say you're going to do, like, relentlessly, like, to a fault, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you say you're going to do it, you do it. Um, Even if it's midnight and you forgot to do it, it's like, you get out of bed and you go do that thing that you promised that you would do because you said you would do it.
Yeah.
They will remember that, and that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Um,
So good.
the ability to say
Yeah.
sorry is a really good indicator of someone's character. I don't know why this one is so hard, but people have such a hard time saying sorry. Like, if you mess up, or if you were late, or if you said you'd call someone, you didn't, it's like, hey, you promised you'd call this recruit, you didn't call. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? That's totally on me. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
why that's so hard just to say sorry, but I watch interactions between reps and their manager all the time, and they'll try to put it back on the rep somehow, and they just won't
Mhm.
take ownership and just say sorry. So that's a really good indicator if someone has high character. And as a bystander, sometimes they don't even know you're watching, but you'll see it. And immediately what happens? You respect that person more. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that just, like, he just said sorry." Like, that goes a long way. That person has humility, and I already trust that person more.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone
That's
doesn't
awesome.
take ownership, you it's almost a deposit in the, you know, it's like a withdrawal from the bank account. You're like, "Okay, mentally I'm refiling this, that person,
Yeah.
is not, you know, not credible.
Yeah. Well, and do you have any advice? I know we don't have a lot of time left here, but last question or two, Alec. Do you have any advice for like reps? Maybe they see a lot of these deficiencies with their leader. Maybe they just joined the company and they're like, oh, I can't count on my leader, or my leader's not even producing. Because I've unfortunately been with companies where I've seen that too. The managers like aren't great. Sometimes they're really good in one of them, but they're lacking on a lot of the other ones. So what would you say to like maybe a newer rep where they see, okay, this guy's he's not that good in character. He could be a lot better at producing. Do you think it's just on that they should start setting an example, or what would you tell a rep where they're like, oh man, my leader's not doing any of this stuff?
Yeah, that a couple thoughts. One, probably just the wrong approach to take with the book or with some of these ideas. Like the right approach is to look at yourself. It's to look inward. That's really
Okay.
what we should be doing. It's not to look at our leaders. One thing I'll say is that you may have leaders that do have deficiencies, but serving myself in multiple leadership roles, both at church and work and as a dad, like
Mm,
the people that are in your stewardship, like there's they only see maybe 50%, maybe 20% of the work that you do and the sacrifice that goes into being a leader. So that
yeah.
respect, I just want to make sure that that's clear. Like, don't be critical of your leader.
Okay.
You really, like, they need your support, and what it may be valid what you're saying. Like if a rep is thinking that they're reading the book and all they're thinking is, oh yeah, my manager sucks, and oh yeah, my manager really needs to read this book. It's like, you're
Yeah.
kind of missing the point. Like, you should be doing that for yourself.
Okay.
And so what I would say is that rep should say, hey, we should do a book club, and we should read, either my book, obviously, I think I'm going to be biased here, but that's why I wrote the book. So I think that would be extremely helpful. Or pick a
Yeah.
different book that's about character, like, John Wooden, or there's some great books about Abraham Lincoln that are, great for character, or Seven Habits, or How to Win Friends or Influence People. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of these books are just so good for developing character. And then, encourage that leader to, manage the discussion on it. And then they're going to have takeaways, and they're going to have thoughts about it. And they might
Yeah.
even, in those moments, don't have any expectation, but in those moments that they're sharing, they may say, hey, and I have a confession. I haven't been great at this thing, and they may
Yeah.
own up to it. But so, yeah, again, the point is not to be critical of your leader. You definitely want to give your leader as much support as you can. If you're
Yeah.
if you're choosing to be on whatever team that you're on in whatever industry you're in, your leader deserves your support and unity. And I know this is a long-winded answer, but I think this is important because for any team to win, you just can't have disharmony. Like, there has to be
Yeah.
unity. And so again, that's not the point, is to create reps that are, critical of their leader. They should read it and think
Okay.
about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think that
But I've
goes for
heard that.
anything.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I've heard that, and that's usually my response is, okay, you're doing this the wrong way. You got to, look inward.
Yeah. True. Extreme ownership, right? Goes back
Yep,
to
exactly.
ownership of what you can control. So that's great.
Yep, 100%.
Um, well, cool, Alex. So before we have to wrap up here, where if I know you said people can get the book on Amazon, Audible. If they want to connect more with you, follow you, what's the best place to connect with you and see more of what you got going on, Alec?
Yep, Instagram,
Okay.
at Alec Nethercott, or email me, alecnethercott@gmail.com.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
yeah, stay in touch. Hope you like the book.
Yeah. Yep. So everyone go read it. And then last question. So if we got people on here, maybe they're thinking, this leadership stuff is great, but I don't really care about being a leader. I just want to go get my own sales, make my money, and that's it. I don't care about like babysitting other people, stepping into management, leading others. So what would you say to those people? Would you say leadership, like everyone should want to develop these leadership skills, or do you think some people are just aren't like built for leadership or shouldn't be doing it? What's your opinion on that with a rep that's like, "Oh, I don't really care about that and it doesn't interest them as much?"
Yeah, I would say I would share a quote with them. And this is the quote. This is by Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
He says, if you work hard on your job, you can make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. And the takeaway is that personal development is leadership development. Leadership development is personal development. You know, there's a lot of jobs you could have. There's a lot of places you could go and just get a paycheck. But if you're not growing as a person, you should take a good hard look at that, because you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you know, when you're on your deathbed, the thing that's going to matter the most is the person that you became through the work that you did. So if you're
Mm,
just doing it, you know, if you're not doing it to become a leader or to be a better parent, which is like the ultimate leader, is, you know, you're, you know, if you, you know, if you have kids, like if you aren't doing it to become a better leader, what are you doing it for? You know, is it
mm,
just a paycheck? Because I would say you should get curious about that. You can get a lot more out of that time. You're going to spend so much time working. You
yeah,
know, you want to do something that's going to be helping you become a better person.
yeah. Yeah, and I just think that at the end of the day, everyone's leading at least one person, and that's yourself, right? So it's like I think better you can lead yourself, and then for me also, I definitely produce better when I'm out there trying to lead from the front, bring other people with me. I know I produce way more myself and make a lot more money, and yeah, I think a lot of benefits to it. So
Yeah,
Alex, I
and
wish we. Oh,
it's
good.
more fun. It's more fun
Yeah,
too. You know, I've been doing this for 16 years now, and I've seen it happen over and over. That, you know, if you're just a solo producer, you know, they typically are just they reach a certain point where they just get lonely and they're not stoked just being a solo producer. It's like, okay,
yeah,
every day is the same. Every day is Groundhog's Day. But when you're working with a team, it's more fun. It's more inspiring. You're building something great together. Like
yeah.
that's you know, that's a beautiful life. That's a beautiful way to work.
Yeah, I've seen it many different times where even a few of them that worked with me on previous teams that weren't the best, where they've gone and joined other teams, and all of a sudden they're like producing at a way higher level. So and my first thought was like, oh, why weren't you working this hard when you were with me? Like, why weren't you producing those numbers?
Yeah, what the heck?
But yeah, but now as I've like learned more of this, I'm like maybe there's a reason they're producing more. Maybe it's a better team. Maybe it's better leaders because it's not always just that they weren't working with you. Um, Probably some other
And there's
stuff
such
going
a
on
thing
there.
as a better culture fit. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen that happen multiple times, you know, many times throughout my career. And I would think the
yeah,
same thing. Oh, why are they selling so much better over there? And honestly, I'm happy for them. It's like, hey, you found your tribe.
yeah,
This wasn't the right fit for you, but I'm glad that you found it over there. That, I mean, ultimately, that's what you want. That's what you
yeah,
wish for a person, is that they can thrive.
yeah. So good. Well, Ak, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got other meetings and stuff to get to, but hopefully, guys, will buy the book. If you haven't, reach out to Alec. Wish we could go like 2 more hours. Such a good podcast today, but we appreciate you coming on, Alec, and hopefully we can do more stuff like this in the future.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, and we'll have to talk more. You got the guitars and stuff in the background, so we didn't even get to talk about music. But
Oh,
yeah, we'll
yes. Yeah.
talk.
Do you play?
Yeah, I'm a drummer, so I'll have
Oh,
to
no
bring
way.
my drum set up, jam with you.
Yep, I've got a Roland electric set back here. This is the attic. This is my
Let's
little,
go. Yeah.
yeah.
The man cave
Yeah,
right there. That's
to be
awesome, man.
continued.
Yeah,
We'll have
that's
to
part
jam
2 of the
sometime.
podcast, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. All right, brother. Well, hey, appreciate you so much, and, yeah, we'll have to have you on in the future. Thanks again.
Awesome. Okay, appreciate it. We'll see you.